Hello, and welcome to an episode of Meet the Designer. My name is Lynn, or LV Handcrafted on all the socials, and in this series of videos, I sit down for a one-on-one live interview with a paper crafter designer. The goal of this series is to learn a little bit more about the designer, how they got started in paper crafting, and in particular, their thoughts on design teams. In today's episode, I'll actually be interviewing myself. So let's get started. Quick introduction. As I mentioned, my name is Lynn, but I go by LV Handcrafted on all of the socials. I share mostly YouTube videos where I make paper crafting tutorials, I do crafty hauls, I do unboxings, and so you'll find most of my projects are on YouTube, but I also share to Instagram, Facebook, and as well, I do run my own Facebook community that is called Crafty Friends of LV Handcrafted. So everybody is welcome to join me on any of those social platforms if you'd like to see my makes. Question number 1. How did you get started in paper crafting? I have always dabbled in a lot of different crafts. So as a young child, my mom taught me how to sew and crochet and knit and all of that good stuff. But it wasn't until high school that I started in paper crafting. And similar to, I think, a lot of people that I've talked to, I actually started with scrapbooking. And one of the main reasons is because it was in high school when I started taking a lot of photos, and I had a camera that I like to just capture a lot of different events and group outings with my friends. And I was, those were the days when we still printed photos and the photos were film cameras. And so I had a lot of photos and I wanted something to do with them. So I started to, initially it was just to put them into albums, just those albums with sleeves that you just slip them into. But then I started to want to do a little bit more, and especially in my college years, I was starting to keep little things like ticket stubs and flyers to events or plays or things like that that we would go see as friends. And then I started to really want to kind of commemorate or just, memorialize some of those events and those trips and those outings. And it was also in college that I started to really travel a little bit as well, especially by myself to visit friends who had moved away. And so, just having a lot of keepsakes from those trips as well and wanting a place for them. And that's when I really started to do a lot more scrapbooking, not as sophisticated as a lot of the scrapbooking layouts that I see today, but for sure, that's how I started in paper crafting. In terms of how or when I started to actually share my paper crafting, a little bit more seriously on social media, that really began in earnest maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, where I've started to really share my makes, and that includes things like card making and mini albums and all sorts of paper crafting projects. And I started that just as a way to kind of put myself out there a little bit, because I felt like this was such a welcoming community, and I for sure benefit a lot from other content creators, whether they're sharing their makes on Instagram or Pinterest or YouTube. And part of me just wanted to add to the community, and as well, part of me really wanted to see if maybe this hobby could actually turn into something where I could maybe earn a little bit of money just from home. At the time when I was really putting out a lot of content, it was during COVID, which maybe for a lot of crafters, this is also, this might ring a little bit true for them as well. But personally, I am a consultant, and so I really have to find my own work, find new clients, and most of my clients, if not all, are small business owners. And COVID was hurting a lot of businesses, not just the small ones, the large ones too. So, you can imagine that for a small business owner, many of them struggled quite a lot during COVID. And so it became hard for me as a business consultant to find new clients. So not everybody was, up for spending the money to maybe, create a new website or put, some money into marketing, whatever have you. And so I started to think about what I could do just to earn some extra money on the side, maybe put a little bit more time into my hobby. At the time as well, my father was ill, and so there was a lot of just emotional stress from that. And so I found a little bit of a refuge in my paper crafting for a multitude of reasons. And while that was sort of at the time the initial motivation, now I do it because I enjoy it quite a lot. And in particular, since having started my Facebook community, I have really felt very connected to the people who watch my videos and follow me on social media. And that has really made me feel super enthusiastic and encouraged, and just, the fun of meeting new people and getting to have more of a two-way connection with them, especially in the past year, having started to live stream, and more recently live stream consistently every Saturday. I feel like it's been a real treat to get to craft and chat with not just my crafty friends live on camera, but also in the live chat, and really get to have that, real time interaction with them. And through that, meeting new people has been really, really fun for me. And so nowadays, my motivation and why I keep sharing, why I keep making videos, why I keep live streaming is because I'm feeling a deeper connection to all of my kind of virtual crafty friends, and so it's become a lot of fun. And thankfully, in terms of the technical side of things, I've tried to get it to a point where that's less of a hurdle. So now I can really focus on the fun of crafting and the fun of interacting with the community. So it's definitely one of those things that initially it might be a little bit hard, but with practice, with time, with experience, some of the things that were a struggle in the beginning are not a struggle anymore, and so that just leaves the fun aspect of it. So that's how I got started, and that's where I'm at now. So often on design team applications, we are asked how we would describe our own style. So question number 2 is, how would you describe your style? This is probably the question on design team applications that I think I dread the most, because I feel like I don't have a definitive style or viewpoint, point of view. in the sense that if you saw one of my cards and it wasn't watermarked by, with my name or signature or crafty handle, I don't know that you could really pick it out of a crowd and say, oh, that's something made by LV Handcrafted or made by Lynn. And oftentimes when I see this question, one of the things that I think about is when there are times when I've seen cards made by other crafters and I don't even have to see their watermark or signature. I kind of have a good guess as to who has made that. And so I don't feel like my work is so uniquely me, in the sense that if you saw it in a lineup, you'd be able to pick out which ones were made by me and which aren't. And so that's why I have a hard time answering this question, because I'm a bit of a dabbler in a lot of different ways. I dabble in a lot of crafts. I do resin crafting. I do soap making. I sew. I have done leather work. I just do a lot of things. And in terms of style, I feel that I'm the same. I approach it the same as well. So I try to do everything from clean and simple to card sketches to interactive cards, pop-up cards, boxes and bags and mini albums, travelers, notebooks. I've done my own hand sewn binding to make notebooks and art journals and things like that. So I'm a little bit all over the place in terms of style. In terms of what I make, and then also in terms of style, I like to try to dabble in different things as well. So a little bit of shabby chic sometimes, a little bit of grunge other times, something a little bit more modern and classy, things that are cute and feature a lot of critters, scenes versus florals. I'm a little bit all over the place. I think it's probably because I don't come from a very artsy background, and so I haven't really developed a point of view, much like you would maybe find in artists who paint, for example, and they have maybe a technique that's kind of their signature, or a style that is their signature. So I can't really say for sure how I would describe my style. But when I go to answer this question, I try to frame it in that way of, I am an experimental crafter. I like to try different things, and that includes different styles. And I don't know if that's an answer that is seen as favorable or not by DT owners who are evaluating applications, but I feel like it's the most honest answer I can give. And so that's in a nutshell how I would describe my style. It can be helpful for anyone watching the rest of the interview to have a little bit of context around a designer's experience or history with design teams as they listen to any particular advice that designer might have. So question number 3 is, how many different design teams have you been on, and how long have you been designing for design teams? My history with design teams is pretty short. So I started, my very first design team that I joined was in October of 2021. And since then, I have joined 18 different teams. And I know that's a lot of teams in a short amount of time. Some teams have short terms, 3 months, for example, 6 months. So at probably the peak, I was maybe on, I would say at most, maybe 10 teams at a time. Currently, that's not the case. I've sort of ramped up to that, and now I'm sort of ramping back down a little bit. And I have been on a variety of different teams. So I've been on challenge teams, I've been on teams that were operated by retailers who do not create their own product. I've been on teams of retailers who do manufacture their own brand products. I've been on international teams, US only teams, teams where you craft with digital products, teams where you craft with physical products. I've been on teams where you are given supplies, and some teams where you're not. So I've even though I've only been designing for design teams since late 2021, I have seen a fair number of different teams and have had a good history or experience with different types of teams. And so it's been a lot of learning in a short amount of time, and I'm not necessarily an expert at all things design teams, but I do feel like I've seen a lot, experienced a lot in that short amount of time. And then I'll also just throw in there that I have been on the side of being a design team member, being a design team lead for another team, and sort of the team manager, team coordinator. It's called different things by different companies. And for a short period, for one short 3-month term, I did run my own design team until I created, along with Danny, Design Team 101, which I felt better suited my goal for why I wanted a design team in the first place. And so I've had a little taste of that experience as well, in terms of running and recruiting and owning your own design team end to end. So it's been a bit of a journey, and it's definitely taught me a lot. So that in a nutshell is my history with design teams. Every paper crafter, every designer has a different goal for themselves in their paper crafting hobby. And so it's not surprising that everyone might have a different reason for why they want to be on a design team, and there probably isn't a right or wrong motivation. So question number 4 is, why did you first decide to join a design team? And a couple of follow-up questions to go along with that. Is that initial motivation your current motivation for why you continue to join and apply for design teams? And if not, what is your current motivation for why you continue to stay on teams and why you continue to apply to join new teams? I had a couple of reasons for why I decided to first join a design team. And the primary goal of it was to actually increase my social media platform, primarily at the time YouTube. And I felt that it was getting to be expensive to buy craft supplies and continue to kind of put different product out there in terms of showcasing them in videos. And from what I understood of design teams, at the time, they give you product as the primary way of compensating you for your time and talent. And so that was the primary goal was to grow my social media and gain exposure that the design team or the company would could help me with, and then secondarily to get the free product in order to have new and different content to share on my channel. At the time, I was and still am primarily focused on YouTube. So that is the platform that I am putting most of my energy into growing, even though I do post to pretty much all of the main socials. Is that the reason that I am still motivated to be on design teams? I would say mostly that's still true for sure. I do have a stronger goal now to actually try to earn money through this hobby. And so now I'm looking at things through that lens in terms of if I wanted to make this a career or make it such that I could actually spend more time crafting and maybe less time as a business consultant, which is my day job, how can I do that? And are there design teams that will help me accomplish that? So now I have that lens through which I look at design teams that I choose to apply to. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm only looking for design teams that pay, because some do in terms of money and not just product. But it helps me to look at things through a different lens of, where I'm putting my time and energy and whether, that's going to help me push forward my goals, being to continue to grow my social platform, but also to monetize and turn what is a hobby maybe into, a secondary career. And so that's becoming more and more of a focus for me. And so nowadays, when I'm looking at design teams, I'm considering that as another lens to look at things through. And also these days, another consideration that I never thought about initially was that in what we do as paper crafters and as design team members, we go through other product and supplies as well. So things like papers and inks and embellishments and other tools and machines. And so there are additional expenses that don't necessarily get covered by a design team that puts out stamps and dies, for example. And some teams do compensate. They do give you a little bit of a budget or stipend to help you with some of those costs. But I'm also looking at teams nowadays that help to kind of keep me supplied in some of those other things. So, for example, there are companies that only make embellishments, and there are companies that are more like your media supplies, inks and sprays and things like that. There are companies that are paper companies that offer different types of papers like watercolor papers, cardstock, solid color cardstock, white cardstock, etc. So I'm now looking for teams that also keep me a little bit more well-rounded in the supplies that I get. Again, for the reasons of reducing my costs, but as well to also, just have different ways to craft that give me some freedom. So, for example, if I am on a design team that for a company that makes paper products, well, they don't make stamps and dies, so that actually frees me up to use some of the products that I buy for myself. Which, if you watch my channel, I love to shop the sales, and you may also notice that I have my crafty haul videos, but it's so rare, when I have a video that features some of what I've purchased. And so being on a team that has a product line that is not a stamp or die means that then I can start to use the products that I buy, that I want to use, that I've purchased personally because I love. And so it sort of gives me a little bit more freedom to use other products. It's which is also the reason why I live stream, because my live streams are not sponsored. They're just for me. They're for me to have fun with my crafty friends. And often you'll find that the things that I've bought personally are what I'm using on those streams. And so that's one of the ways I look to actually find a little bit of a balance between design teamwork and having to craft with specific products versus some personal crafty time and getting to craft with the supplies that I buy, that I love, that I want to craft with. So those, that was my original reason, and I think that still stands, but now I'm looking at new design team opportunities through maybe a broader lens and evaluating it at different angles for my goals and what I want to achieve with my paper crafting. I think most people who have been on design teams will probably agree with me when I say that there are a lot of benefits and positive aspects of being on a design team. But question number 5 is, what is your favorite thing about being on a design team that you didn't actually expect before you joined one? There are so many things to love about design teams. And if I had to say the one thing that I didn't expect, because I think going in, most of us expect to get the free product, and of course that's definitely one of the major pluses. But I think the thing I didn't actually expect was to have made what I would consider real friends, even though I haven't met them in person. But the crafty friends who I stream with on a regular basis, who are my moderators in my Facebook community group, I consider them real, genuine friends who, sometimes we talk about things not craft related as well. And a lot of times, I talk to some of them more often than I talk to some of my other friends who I've known for 10, 20 years. And so I think that's the thing that really surprised me the most in terms of being on design teams, and that is the relationships and the friendships that that sometimes you find yourself making, and so every team dynamic I feel is different, and sometimes you click with different people differently, and that's going to be true for every kind of social setting that you're in. And so I wouldn't say that there are teams where maybe I don't have like a strong personal connection with any particular individual on that team, but it still might be one of my favorite teams. And there have been teams where maybe other things aren't going the way that I would find most ideal, but I've really connected with, an individual or two from that team. And so I think all of that's just it's very personal, and it has really nothing to do with any specific design team. I think it's just to do with getting to meet other crafty people who are who maybe just being able to find your tribe. I think Delise has often said it's about finding people who are the same kind of crazy that you are. and and so that has really nothing to do with any specific design team, as I mentioned, and more to do with the fact that when you're put into a group of other crafters, I think the chances you'll find somebody who's your kind of crazy, who gets your need to buy something that maybe you don't necessarily need. Things like that, I think, are really wonderful, and has been a really big surprise for me in terms of what I didn't expect, but what has become one of my favorite things about my design team experience so far. When you are very new to design teams, you might not expect that there are going to be things that you may enjoy less than other things, and especially once you've been on several different teams, because every team dynamic is different, your experiences will be different as well. So question number 6 is, what is your least favorite thing about being on the design team that you didn't expect? I would say for me, the thing that is my least favorite aspect of a design team is that there are understandably sometimes when things have to happen a little bit last minute, a little bit unscheduled, last minute changes, or just things coming in a little bit later than I would prefer to have had them. And part of that is because of me coming from a background of being a project manager, of being a person who likes to have things planned in advance, who likes to have things scheduled, who doesn't like the stress of things happening last minute. For me, that is a struggle. And in particular, because I do still work, I still am a business consultant. I'm fortunate that I work for myself, and so my job has a lot of flexibility in terms of whether I take a new client or not, whether I take a new project or not. But it does have some predictability that even though I control it, and I can control how much it fluctuates. That's still always going to be a priority on my time. And so with my design team obligations, if I know what they are, if I have them scheduled, if I know the dates and I get everything in a lot of advance time, I can meet all of those obligations and plan my own work time around that. But it becomes harder for me to do that when the schedule isn't predictable, when things change last minute or things come in very last minute. And so that's the sort of thing that then puts stress on me and as something that is, a hobby, even though a hobby that's slash, you can consider it a little bit of a career, because if you're going to be on a design team, you do need to take those obligations seriously, as any professional would take a job seriously. Um, so, those are the sorts of things that make it a little bit more stressful for me. And so being something that is something that I'm doing by choice to spend my free time, it's definitely puts a light on things when I start to question, do I want to stay on this team or not? Do I want to renew if I'm invited to stay for another term? Is that something that I want? And so there are times when, I love the people, I love the product, but it's just the process that I'm not in love with. And that's sort of, I kind of need all three, for it to be something where I feel like I can stick with long term. So that would be probably my least favorite. And I say that knowing that a lot of times those things just really can't be helped, and I think that it's through no fault of the design team owner, the company owner, because that's not the ideal situation that they would want either. But for various reasons, that's kind of just the reality of what needs to happen for their business, and so I understand that. And so then it just becomes one of those things where you just have to be honest with yourself in terms of whether something is a good fit for you, and and whether you're finding that you're still kind of enjoying, what you're doing. And it, for me, it's not just about the end goal. It's about the journey getting there too. So I want to make sure that I'm enjoying the work that I'm doing, the time that I'm spending, and even if it's a team where it's helping me to meet other goals of mine, if I'm not enjoying that process, then I really have to question whether that's worth it, even if it's helping me to meet my goals. It's because that is a goal too, is to also enjoy myself. So yeah, I think that would be my least favorite thing. There are a lot of different aspects to being on a design team, from the products that you get to work with to the cadence of the release cycles of those products to the people dynamics and the relationships of the people on that team. And a lot of those things can influence your experience on a team. So, question number 7 is, describe what your ideal design team looks like from any or all of those standpoints. Okay, so my ideal design team, I talked a little bit about this just a moment ago. I would say that I for sure need to love the product, so I only apply to design teams where I no, I love their style. I can see multiple ways to craft with the things that they produce. So for sure, that's my number one, the product. Number two would be the people. So, and I think for this, you kind of may not have complete, transparency or insight into the team in order to evaluate it before you join. But my ideal team would be that there's really no drama on the team, that people are supportive. It's open if you want to ask questions, and if you're feeling like you need a little bit of help on maybe how to photograph something in the most ideal way, or if you just want feedback on a card that you're working on, that even if there isn't, if you don't feel comfortable doing it with the whole design team, even if there's like an individual or two on that team who you would feel comfortable being a little bit vulnerable in that way, like admitting, okay, I don't 100% know how to do XYZ, or I'm a little bit unsure of XYZ. What are your thoughts? I think that's definitely something that I've really enjoyed in some teams. And as I mentioned, some of those individuals have become true friends of mine, and so I value that, and especially the friends who will give you that honest feedback of I don't know that I would do it quite like that. Have you thought about X, Y, or Z? That they're nice about it, but they'll give helpful, constructive criticism, advice, etc. So I find that the people component is really important. I would also say that my ideal team is going to also help me further my goals as a paper crafter and a content creator. So by that, I mean teams that help you to really promote, they promote their design team. So they will share their design team's makes. They'll tag, the person and attribute, credit that individual by tagging them, and help to share, their makes out there, and help, kind of direct their platform to their design team members. And so I think that mutual sharing, where as design team members, if you're not already doing it, you should, whether your DT asks you to or not, but you should be tagging them. You should be tagging your photos with them. And so I think we all do our part to help to share, our projects, and direct traffic, use our product links and direct traffic to help promote the company that we're DTing for, and to help promote the products that they make. And ideally, the design team will be reciprocating that and doing the same for their DT members as well. And so I think that's definitely a big part of what I would find important. And I think if I had to kind of add anything else, it would be that the team is also well run. So there's sort of clear leadership and direction. And that includes something I know Danny is very big on, which is communication. So things are very clearly communicated, that you're provided the information, before you need it, well in advance. Ideally, a team that has a a cadence that is predictable and a schedule that's predictable, because I find that's easier for me to kind of sync that up with my own schedule or for the multiple teams that I am on. And so that sort of predictability, that sort of advanced communication, so we can plan the strong and clear leadership from whoever. A lot of times the leader of a design team is the company owner themselves. Sometimes it's another individual on the team. So wherever that's coming from, having clear a leader who is clear in their communications, timely in their communications, and that as a whole, there's good transparency in terms of, what's going on, what's to be expected. And I think that all lends itself to how well run a design team is. And so I definitely appreciate teams where everything kind of goes. And that's not to say that there might be some exceptions to the rules. I think that's fine, but on the whole, I'm looking for a team that's really well organized, well run, and I feel that kind of slots into my personality really well, and my own personal time and how I need to juggle things. So that would be my third. So the first is that I love the products. The second is that the people are supportive, or at least some there's some individuals who you can really talk with and find some support there. And overall, that the group dynamic is a positive one, where there isn't negativity, there isn't drama, and that the team is well organized and well run with good leadership in place. So those would be the three things, the three core kind of aspects of a design team, and what I would find as the ideal setting. And if I want to add another layer onto things, the last would probably be a team that really helps me further my own goals of, one, broadening the reach of my channel, primarily my YouTube channel, and as well helping me to meet that goal of monetizing as a content creator, and actually trying to earn an income as a content creator. So that's becoming one of the pillars by which I am evaluating design teams. So those would be my ideal characteristics of any design team. For anyone who might be watching who has never applied to a design team, or maybe they've applied some, but they're still struggling to get onto teams, the last question is, what is your number one tip for anybody who is thinking about joining a design team? This is kind of a hard one to answer, but I think I've really distilled it down to this one thing, which I think is a big umbrella that covers a lot of other things. And that is that my number one tip for anyone who is thinking about joining a design team is to take it seriously, because design teams it's a little bit of a gray area where you are doing what is probably what you would consider a hobby, but you are doing it in a setting that is very job-like, in the sense that you are receiving something as compensation, whether that's free product, or in some cases, some DT owners will pay in monetary compensation, and you have real responsibilities and obligations that you need to meet. And so while it's not maybe a job in the full sense of a job that has a W-2 and a paycheck that you cash each month, it's still a very serious obligation and should be taken seriously. And so it is a little bit in that gray area of, this isn't the sort of thing that you go into lightly, even though it is a hobby. There are some very, there are some things that you may do a little bit differently than if you were to just craft for fun with that same company's product that you are now on a design team for. So, so I would, if you're thinking about joining a design team, if you're trying to get onto a design team, I would take the whole process as seriously as you can, from applying to the team. For example, you wouldn't go into a job interview without doing some research about the company that you are applying to. You wouldn't, just casually write up your resume and submit that to a job interview. So you should treat a design team application in the same way. Do your research about the company, see if it's a product that you love, see what it is that you can bring in terms of value to that company. And when you put together your design team application, take that process seriously and thoughtfully. And when you're on a design team, you need to be taking all of the deadlines and your obligations as a design team member seriously, and making sure that you're fulfilling those obligations. And I would definitely, make sure that if you are thinking about joining a design team, that you have it in mind that this is really something that you want to dedicate your time to doing, because design team owners, I'm sure, value people who are really in it for the long haul, that they're not just, interested in sharing a couple times throughout the year, but sharing, on a very regular, consistent, routine basis. And so if you don't have the time to really dedicate to, really fulfilling your design team obligations, maybe find a team that is a little bit more, casual. Find things like, there are lots of different hops that you can either join or not join. They run every month, but you can sign up to participate that month or not. So there's lots of ways to still, participate, be part of a group, be, part of a team of sorts that doesn't necessarily have the same obligations that a design team would. So I think you should really only, apply for design teams if it's something that you are going to kind of take to that next level of not just casually crafting now, but crafting a little bit more seriously with some intent and with purpose. Because as design team members, our job is to help promote a brand, a product, a company. And so what we do and how we frame what we do needs to be in that light. And we have to do that with a degree of professionalism and as almost, representatives of the brand. Because when we put our work out there, it's with the design team's logo, the brand's logo. And so everything that you do needs to be in that light, and so it has to be approached with that viewpoint of representing, a company, and so it does need to have a certain degree of polish, and needs to be in a light that is genuine and represents you, but also represents the company in a favorable light as well. So I would say if there was the one thing, I would distill it down to that, is to approach this with the the level of seriousness and professionalism that is required. And I would also say, along with that, if a lot of times in your hobbies, if you have setbacks, you can kind of take it or leave it. But I would also say that if you're gonna kind of get into the design team world of applying to design teams, being on design teams, you might hit some setbacks of, not getting onto every team that you apply for. I certainly don't get onto every team I apply for. And so you also have to take those hurdles, take those challenges as opportunities for improving what you can to do better next time, to really evaluate where you're at and where you want to be, and figure out a plan to get where you want to be. So, if right now you are sharing a lot on Instagram, but you want to make it onto a video team, or you're on a video team, but you want to be a live streamer, how do you get past whatever hurdles are currently in your way to reaching that goal, and develop whatever skills you need to develop to get to that next step, and put yourself on a path to hitting those goals. So I think a lot of that sort of thoughtfulness of, what and how you approach design team work is all part of, just really taking it all seriously, because as a hobby, you kind of do it, you don't do it. It's not, I do a lot of sewing. I do some, I'm getting into doing weaving, like loom weaving, and crafts like that. And I do it, I don't do it. It's not the end of the world if I don't make a project, if I don't sew something, if I don't weave, something for a couple months. It's not the end of the world. I can kind of take it or leave it. But with my paper crafting, with my design team obligations, I take all of that a little bit more seriously, or I should say a lot more seriously, and I'm always thinking about what I can be doing to improve myself as a paper crafter. What else can I be learning? Where do I want to take things in the future? Where are my next goals, and how do I get there? So if you're enjoying the hobby as a hobby, then keep it that way, or keep a balance of how much design team work you take versus how much just free time you want to leave for yourself to enjoy the hobby as a craft. But just know going into design team work that I think you're gonna find more success if you are approaching it with the level of seriousness that it demands. I think that Jamie from Sweet Sentiment Stamps said it really well in Design Team Let's Talk Design Teams Part 3. She said that we all have to understand that for the design team owner, this is their livelihood. This is their job. This is their career. This is their livelihood. And as design team members, this may be a part of our hobby, but what we do, our design team owners take very seriously. It's a very serious obligation for them. So if you're going to join a design team, I think you have to realize that your work on that design team and your how you carry yourself as part of the design team is being taken very seriously. So if your mindset is not matching that level of seriousness that it is for the design team owner, then that's where you might find some conflict, and you're gonna find the most success when your level of seriousness with regards to how you're approaching your design team obligation and your role on the design team matches the expectations and the level of seriousness that the design team owner has. Because that is their livelihood, that's their business, that's their income, that's their revenue, and so I would definitely kind of try to see it through that lens. And I don't think being on a design team is for everybody, but you can still find a lot of joy and a lot of community in other ways. So there's a lot of different types of teams out there that are, like I mentioned, more opt-in in terms of whether you want to participate, in whatever activity that they're doing that month. And so look for the thing that's going to suit you and be a good fit for you. And those opportunities, there may be fewer, there may be more of them, just depending on what you're looking for, but it's probably out there. The right opportunity, the right fit for you is probably out there. It's just a matter of finding it. So so I hope that is helpful to anyone who is thinking about joining a design team. So that's it from me. I hope that this has been an interesting interview. I know it's a little strange to be interviewing myself, but I had a lot of fun, and I know I couldn't really do this live to take questions, but definitely feel free to pop your questions in the comments below, and I would be happy to answer them. If you are not already a member of Design Team 101, that's a Facebook group that my crafty friend Danny and I run. And that's a community just for crafters to chat and ask those questions about how they can do XYZ, anything from staging a photo, what lighting equipment do they need, how do they get started with video, things like that. So less to do about sharing our projects when they're all done, and more to do with, crafter to crafter, how can we help each other? And so Danny and I joined that as a way to create a space for peer mentorship. So there isn't necessarily any one person who is the instructor or teacher or anything like that. We're all there to help each other grow, and everybody is at a different place on their crafty journey. And so from wherever you're starting, whether you just bought your first stamp or if you've been on design teams for 20 plus years, Everybody is welcomed because there's always something new to learn. The industry is always changing. Social media is always changing. And so this is a place for us to gather and have an open, safe place to be vulnerable, to ask the questions that maybe we're a little too shy to ask of our design teams. Or if you're not on a design team and you want to get onto a design team and you want some feedback on how to help you get there, this is the forum for that. And if you want to join, just make sure that you accept all the rules and that you're coming to this space with a open mind and in the spirit of trying to be helpful and trying to be open to hearing different opinions. It's fine. We don't all have to agree on everything, but the idea is that hopefully the questions that are being asked, you're getting different perspectives, you're getting different takes on it, and then you, as the person who is most interested in that answer, can take from it what you will. So it's not meant to be a instructive space. It's more meant to be just a community of designers, of paper crafters, content creators who are there to help one another through what I like to just term as peer mentorship, just a way to just help each other get to where we want to get. So I'll leave links to Design Team 101 if anyone is interested in joining. And so I welcome you to join that and get your questions asked there as well if you'd like. So until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Thanks. Bye.